The invisible advantage. The Vexari invasion of Earth had proceeded according to their meticulous calculations. Their superior technology had neutralized Earth's military forces within days. Their advanced biology had made them impervious to most Earth pathogens. Their strategic brilliance had allowed them to establish control nodes on every continent. Yet something was wrong. High Commander Scavrell stared at the holographic display of Earth's northern hemisphere, watching the red dots representing resistance cells multiplying despite their best efforts. 6 cycles into the occupation, and the human resistance was growing stronger, not weaker. "Explain this to me again," Scavrell demanded, his 4 eyes narrowing at Intelligence Director Mrithal. "How are they identifying our infiltrators?" Mrithal's skin rippled with anxiety patterns. "We remain uncertain, High Commander. Our infiltrators undergo perfect genetic resequencing. They possess identical cellular structures, blood chemistry, and even the primitive bacterial ecosystems that humans harbor in their digestive systems. Yet they are being discovered," Scavrell hissed. 17 infiltrators terminated in the last cycle alone. "Yes, High Commander. The pattern suggests the humans have some means of detection we haven't accounted for." The door to the command chamber slid open as Science Director Vlanier entered, her movements hurried. "I may have identified a potential oversight," she announced. Scavrell gestured impatiently. "Speak." "We've been monitoring human communications. There are references to something called goosebumps when our infiltrators are present." Vlanier activated her tablet, displaying microscopic images of human skin. "It appears to be an involuntary dermal reaction, causing temporary elevation of the epidermis." "Primitive threat detection," Mrithal murmured. "But our infiltrator's body temperature is calibrated to human normal." "Not temperature," Vlanier corrected. "Something else. The humans have an unexplained ability to sense wrongness. They cannot articulate it, but their bodies react. It is statistically insignificant in individual cases, but in group settings, the cumulative effect becomes noticeable." Scavrell's upper limbs tightened. "Can we replicate this reaction?" "Not without understanding its mechanism. It appears to be some evolutionary holdover, possibly connected to their limbic system." "Useless evolutionary holdovers," Scavrell scoffed. "Like their appendix or wisdom teeth. Their biology is riddled with inefficient vestigial remnants." "Yes, but this particular inefficiency is causing us significant strategic problems," Mrithal noted dryly. The command console chimed. A field commander's face appeared on the screen, mandibles clicking anxiously. "High Commander, we have intercepted human communications about a weapon. Something they're calling Project Vestige." Scavrell leaned forward. "Specifications? Unknown. Only that they believe it will turn our biology against us, and that development is nearly complete." After the communication ended, Scavrell paced the chamber. A biological weapon would explain their confidence. "Director Vlanier, analyze all human research facilities. Director Mrithal, double infiltration efforts into their resistance cells." "The detection issue remains," Mrithal reminded him. "Then use non-infiltration methods. Capture and interrogate. I want this Project Vestige identified and neutralized." In an abandoned subway tunnel beneath former Chicago, Dr. Eleanor Chen studied a microscope slide. Her colleagues gathered around the makeshift laboratory. "It's working," she announced. "The bacteria have successfully incorporated the engineered plasmid." Colonel James Ortega nodded grimly. "Timeline: 2 weeks to sufficient quantities. Then we'll need to distribute it through the water systems near their major bases. The Vexari will be looking for conventional bioweapons," Dr. Samir Patel noted, adjusting his glasses. "But they won't be looking for this." Eleanor straightened, stretching her back. "Because it doesn't target them directly. It targets something they don't even realize they have." The tunnel door slid open as a scout team returned, led by Captain Maya Rivera. Her expression was grim. "They've increased patrols, and they're using shock tactics now, grabbing civilians for interrogation." Ortega's jaw tightened. "They're getting desperate." Or they've heard rumors about Project Vestige, Eleanor suggested. Impossible, Maya insisted. Only the High Command knows the details. Either way, Ortega said, we accelerate. Dr. Chen, can we reduce the timeline? Eleanor exchanged glances with Samir. Possibly, but we'll need more equipment. Make a list. Maya's team will acquire it tonight. After the others departed, Eleanor returned to her microscope. On the slide, genetically modified bacteria multiplied. Bacteria designed to target the one thing the Vexeri had overlooked. High Commander Scavrel reviewed the interrogation reports with mounting frustration. 3 weeks of intensified operations had yielded nothing concrete about Project Vestige. The humans are remarkably resistant to our truth serums, Mrithal observed. Or they genuinely don't know, Villeneuve suggested. Perhaps this weapon is compartmentalized knowledge. Perhaps it doesn't exist, Scavrel snapped. A psychological operation to waste our resources. The command console chimed again. A field commander appeared, his normally blue skin flushed purple with distress. High Commander, we're observing an unusual phenomenon. Our troops in Sector 7 are reporting digestive system failures. Scavrel straightened. Elaborate. Severe gastrointestinal distress. Nutrient absorption declining rapidly. The pattern suggests microbial involvement. A pathogen. Villeneuve moved closer to the screen. We were designed to be resistant to Earth microbes. This appears different. It's targeting our supplementary digestive flora. After the field commander signed off, Villeneuve's expression darkened. The Vexeri digestive system relies on symbiotic bacteria to process certain nutrients. If those bacteria are being targeted, Project Vestige, Scavrel murmured. They've weaponized bacterial phages against our digestive flora. Impossible, Mrithal objected. The humans couldn't know the composition of our digestive bacteria. We've maintained strict biohazard protocols. Unless, Villeneuve's voice trailed off, her eyes widening. Commander, our infiltrators maintain human digestive bacteria as camouflage. We designed them to be dormant. But what if? What if they're not dormant? Scavrel finished. What if the human appendix actually serves a purpose we overlooked? Villeneuve's fingers flew over her tablet. The human appendix has long been considered vestigial, but recent research suggests it may serve as a reservoir for beneficial gut bacteria. Which means our infiltrators, designed to perfectly mimic humans, have been carrying human gut bacteria back to our bases, where they could be studied. Mrithal concluded. We gave them the blueprint for our weakness. Scavrel slammed a limb against the console. Quarantine all bases. No movement between sectors. Initiate emergency antimicrobial protocols. But even as the orders went out, reports of spreading illness began flooding in from across the planet. The humans had found the Vexeri's fatal weakness, not through superior technology or greater numbers, but through an overlooked, supposedly useless little pouch of flesh that had preserved the very bacteria now being weaponized against their invaders. And the Vexeri had never seen it coming. The reckoning. The Vexeri orbital command ship, Inevitable Dominance, had become a floating hospital. 3 cycles after the first reports of illness, nearly 60% of ground forces were incapacitated. The emergency antimicrobial protocols had proven ineffective against the engineered bacteriophages that targeted their digestive flora with terrifying precision. High Commander Scavrel, himself weakened by the spreading contagion, stood before the emergency council. Our genetic engineers have identified the weapon, he reported, his voice hoarse. The humans have created bacteriophages that exclusively target the bacteria our digestive systems require for nutrient processing. How do they isolate our symbiotic bacteria? Demanded war strategist Cliverin. Our biological security protocols are unmatched across 17 conquered systems. Science Director Villeneuve's skin displayed patterns of deep embarrassment. We overlooked a critical detail in human physiology. The appendix, a small pouch-like structure connected to their large intestine, serves as a reservoir for beneficial gut bacteria. The supposedly vestigial organ. Cleveland's scales flared with disbelief. Yes, recent human research has suggested it helps repopulate the gut with healthy bacteria after illness. It's an evolutionary adaptation we dismissed as irrelevant. Our infiltrators, Rethel added, were designed with fully functional human digestive systems, including appendices, to pass any medical examination. When they returned to our bases, they brought samples of human gut bacteria with them. Scavrel finished. Bacteria that, while different from our own symbiotic species, were similar enough for the humans to use as templates for their engineered phages. A simple oversight, Cleveland hissed. A useless bit of flesh has brought low the greatest military force in the sector. There's more, Villeneuve continued. We've detected unusual movement patterns among human resistance forces. They appear to be converging on our primary command nodes. Scavrel straightened painfully. They're launching a coordinated attack while we're vulnerable. With what weapons? Cleveland demanded. We neutralized their military capability. Conventional capability, Mrithal corrected. But reports indicate they've repurposed civilian infrastructure, construction equipment, industrial machinery, even agricultural vehicles, into makeshift assault platforms. Primitive, Cleveland scoffed. Effective, Scavrel countered, especially against bases where 60% of our forces are incapacitated by digestive failure. The command console chimed with an emergency alert. The holographic display showed 3 of their southern hemisphere bases under attack. The humans had welded armor plating to earth-moving equipment, creating crude but functional assault vehicles. Worse, they'd somehow managed to disable the Vexeri's automated defense systems. How are they penetrating our security networks? Scavrel demanded. Mrithal's answer was quiet. It appears they've used our own infiltration technology against us. The biometric data collected from captured infiltrators has given them access to our systems. One by one, the command nodes across Earth began falling. Without functioning digestive systems, Vexeri troops couldn't maintain combat effectiveness. The Emergency Council watched in stunned silence as centuries of military dominance crumbled before a species they had dismissed as technologically primitive. Prepare evacuation protocols, Scavrel finally ordered. We will regroup in the Proxima system and develop countermeasures. Evacuation. Cleveland's voice rose in disbelief. We have never abandoned a conquest. We have never faced an enemy who turned our own biology against us, Scavrel replied. The conquest of Earth is suspended until we can neutralize their biological weapon. Dr. Eleanor Chen stood on the roof of what had once been a Vexeri command base in former Seattle, watching Vexeri shuttles streaking upward through the atmosphere. Beside her, Colonel Ortega observed through binoculars. They're running, he said, lowering the binoculars, all across the planet. Not running, Eleanor corrected. Retreating to regroup. They'll be back once they've developed resistance to our phages. How long do we have? A year, maybe 2. Their genetic engineering is advanced. Samir joined them, tablet in hand. The modified bacteria are performing better than expected. 90% of Vexeri troops were affected within 3 weeks of deployment. And the appendix cultures? Still viable. We'll be able to create new variants as needed. Eleanor nodded, gazing at the fading contrails of the Vexeri shuttles. The appendix. The one organ they thought was useless. The one piece of human biology they completely overlooked. And it's what gave us the tools to drive them off. For now, Ortega cautioned. For now, she agreed. But we've bought time. And we've learned something important. What's that? That sometimes, evolutionary baggage turns out to be precisely what you need when facing an unexpected threat. She smiled grimly. They thought we were inefficient, filled with useless vestigial parts. They saw it as a weakness. Instead, it was our salvation. Samir finished. Below them, human resistance fighters were already stripping the abandoned Vexeri base for technology. Engineers were examining Vexeri weapon systems. Scientists were collecting biological samples. The next time the Vexari came, humanity would be ready. One cycle later, High Commander Squirrel stood before the Supreme Directorate on the Vexari homeworld, explaining the unprecedented failure of the Earth invasion. The humans exploited a biological oversight, he concluded. We dismissed their appendix as vestigial, when in fact it served as both a repository of bacterial knowledge and a means of delivering that knowledge into our midst. The Supreme Director's feeding tentacles writhed with displeasure. This is unacceptable. 17 successful planetary conquests, and you were defeated by a primitive species because of a small pouch of tissue. Not just the tissue, Squirrel corrected, but what it represents. We underestimated human adaptability. Their biology retains features we would have engineered out of ourselves as inefficient, yet these very features provided them with unexpected resilience. What do you propose? A new approach. The humans know we will return with countermeasures to their bacteriophages. They are undoubtedly preparing new defenses using our abandoned technology, but they still believe we see them as technologically inferior. And that is an advantage we can exploit. I propose we offer them something no Vexari has ever offered a conquered species, a technological exchange. Access to interstellar travel technology in exchange for uninhibited study of their unusual biology. The Supreme Director's feeding tentacles stopped moving. You wish to negotiate with them as equals. I wish to understand them, Squirrel replied. Their biology contains unexpected advantages, adaptations we eliminated from our own genome generations ago in pursuit of efficiency. If we dismiss them again, we risk another defeat. After a long silence, the Supreme Director gestured assent. Prepare your diplomatic mission, High Commander. But understand this, if you fail again, it will be your final failure. As Squirrel departed the chamber, he reflected on the irony. The mighty Vexari, conquerors of 17 worlds, now seeking to learn from a species they had nearly dismissed entirely, all because of a small, supposedly useless bit of flesh that had proven to be anything but vestigial. Perhaps there were other lessons the humans could teach them about the value of evolutionary holdovers, lessons that might reshape the Vexari approach to conquest, and perhaps even their understanding of their own biology. One thing was certain. They would never again overlook the details of human physiology. For in those details, in the seemingly insignificant vestiges of their evolutionary past, humans had found the means to set their world ablaze with the fires of resistance, and to force even the mighty Vexari to reconsider what it meant to be evolutionarily superior. The battle for Earth had ended, but the war for understanding had just begun.